I woke up to the sound of my backup generator sputtering and dying at 3 in the morning, which was exactly the kind of thing that made me question every life decision that led me to living in the Meadowbrook Estates HOA in suburban Phoenix, Arizona. The power had gone out around midnight, due to one of those freak summer storms that hit the desert without warning. I had filled my generator with fuel just yesterday, a full 5 gallons of premium gas mixed with stabilizer, because I learned my lesson last year when the grid went down for 4 days straight during monsoon season. I stumbled out of bed, grabbed my flashlight, and made my way to the side yard where I kept the generator secured behind a locked gate. What I found made my blood run cold despite the 90-degree night air. The fuel cap was off, sitting on the ground next to the generator. The tank was bone dry. Someone had siphoned every last drop. I stood there in my boxer shorts and undershirt, sweating and furious, trying to process what had happened. My neighborhood was supposed to be safe, one of those cookie-cutter developments where everyone drove SUVs and complained about property values. We had an HOA that measured grass height with rulers and sent violation notices if your mailbox was the wrong shade of black. But apparently, we also had thieves. My name is Connor Hayes, and I am a 42-year-old software engineer who works from home. I bought this house 3 years ago after my divorce, thinking a quiet suburban life would help me rebuild. The HOA seemed annoying but manageable at first. Then I met Brenda Patterson. Brenda was the HOA president, a 53-year-old woman with that particular haircut that screamed she wanted to speak to managers across a 5-state radius. She had been on my case since month 1 about everything from my desert landscaping that she claimed looked too natural to the solar panels I installed without getting HOA approval first, even though Arizona state law protected my right to install them. She drove a white Escalade with a custom license plate that said Hopres and wore athleisure outfits that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. But I had no proof she was involved in the fuel theft. Not yet, anyway. I went back inside, grabbed my phone, and started documenting everything with photos. The empty generator, the fuel cap on the ground, the gate that showed no signs of forced entry, which meant someone had either picked the lock or climbed over. I filed a police report online, because Phoenix PD was not going to send anyone out for a theft of 5 gallons of gas, but I wanted it documented. Then, I remembered something my buddy Trevor had told me last month. He worked in logistics for a fuel distribution company and had dealt with cargo theft. He mentioned they used GPS tracking devices and special dyes to catch thieves stealing diesel from construction sites. I called him at 7 in the morning, right when I knew he would be having his coffee. "Connor, man, it is Sunday," he groaned into the phone. "Someone stole all my generator fuel last night. You told me about that GPS tracking stuff. Can regular people buy that?" There was a pause, then I heard the interest creep into his voice. "You think you know who did it? I have suspicions." "Can I buy it or not?" "Yeah, actually. There are companies that sell fuel trackers and dye kits for theft prevention. The dye is the easier option. It is basically a colored marker that is invisible in the fuel but shows up under UV light. The GPS trackers are more expensive, but they are available online. Some of them even work with regular gasoline, not just diesel. Send me links. All of them." By Monday afternoon, I had ordered a micro GPS tracker that was designed to float in gasoline, a special UV dye that was undetectable to the naked eye but would glow bright green under blacklight, and a UV flashlight. 2-day shipping cost me extra, but I did not care. If someone was going to steal from me again, I was going to catch them red-handed. Wednesday arrived with my packages. I spent the evening reading instructions and setting everything up. The GPS tracker was smaller than a quarter, waterproof, and transmitted its location to my phone via an app. The dye came in a small bottle with warnings about permanent staining. I mixed everything carefully into a fresh 5-gallon container of fuel, making sure the tracker was floating properly and the dye was evenly distributed. I filled the generator tank with my special mixture and waited. Thursday night, another storm rolled through. The power went out again at 10:30. I was ready this time, sitting in my living room in the dark with my phone in my hand, watching the generator kick on through my window. The GPS app showed the tracker's location as stationary in my side yard, exactly where it should be. I waited 3 hours. My eyelids were getting heavy around 1:30 in the morning when I heard it, the soft click of my side gate opening. I immediately snapped awake, adrenaline flooding my system. Through the window, I saw a figure moving in my yard with a small flashlight. They were crouched next to my generator. I opened the GPS app and watched. The location marker stayed still for about 5 minutes while the person worked. Then I heard my gate close again. Footsteps retreated down the side of my house toward the street. That is when the GPS marker started moving. I crept to my front window and peeked through the blinds. In the darkness, I could just make out someone walking quickly down the sidewalk carrying what looked like a gas can. They were moving away from my house, heading north up the street. I watched the GPS app as the marker traced the same path. 4 houses up, the marker stopped. Right at 2847 Desert Sage Drive, Brenda Patterson's house. My heart was hammering. I watched the app for another 10 minutes as the marker remained stationary. Then it moved again, but just slightly, as if someone was transferring the fuel from a container into something else. A vehicle tank, probably. I took screenshots of everything. The GPS location, the timestamp, the movement path from my house to hers. Then I made myself wait until morning because showing up at someone's house at 2 in the morning making accusations was a good way to get the police called on me instead. I barely slept. By 6, I was up and checking the app again. The GPS marker was still at Brenda's address, now completely stationary. She had put my fuel in her vehicle and parked it. At 8 in the morning, I called the non-emergency police line and explained the situation. The dispatcher sounded skeptical until I mentioned I had GPS tracking evidence and told her I had filed a report about the first theft. "An officer will come by to take your statement," she said. "But sir, for 5 gallons of gas, this is probably going to be handled as a misdemeanor theft citation. She is the president of our HOA and she has been harassing me for years. This is targeted. I want it documented properly. An officer will be there within 2 hours. Officer Martinez showed up at 9:45. He was a younger guy, maybe 30, with a professional demeanor that made me feel like he was actually taking this seriously. I showed him everything. The photos from the first theft, the police report I had filed online, the generator with its empty tank, and then the GPS tracking data on my phone. His eyebrows went up when he saw the tracking path leading directly to Brenda's house. "You put a GPS tracker in your fuel?" he asked. "After the first theft, yes. It is legal. I checked. I am tracking my own property." "And you said there is also dye in the fuel, UV reactive dye." "If she put my fuel in her vehicle, her gas tank will glow green under a black light." Officer Martinez actually smiled at that. "That is pretty smart. Okay, let me call this in and see how my supervisor wants to handle it. If we can verify the fuel in her vehicle contains your marked fuel, we have probable cause for theft." He went back to his patrol car to make calls while I waited in my driveway, trying not to look as smug as I felt. 20 minutes later, a second patrol car pulled up, and a sergeant got out. Martinez briefed him, showed him my phone with the GPS data, and I watched them have a conversation that involved a lot of nodding. The sergeant approached me. "Mr. Hayes, I am Sergeant Donnelly. Officer Martinez filled me in. We are going to go speak with Miss Patterson. If she consents to us checking her vehicle's fuel tank, we can resolve this quickly. If not, we will need to apply for a warrant, which will take longer, but we have enough probable cause based on your GPS evidence." "Whatever you need to do," I said. "I just want my property back, and I want this on record." "Understood. Stay here, please. We will let you know what happens." I watched both patrol cars drive up the street toward Brenda's house. My hands were shaking with nervous energy. Part of me could not believe this was actually happening. Brenda Patterson, the woman who had sent me 17 violation notices in 3 years for things like having my trash cans visible from the street past 7 in the morning, and painting my front door a shade of red that was not on the pre-approved color list, had actually stooped to stealing my generator fuel. 30 minutes passed. I paced my driveway, checked the GPS app obsessively even though the marker had not moved, and resisted the urge to walk up there and watch. Finally, both patrol cars came back. Sergeant Donnelly got out with a look on his face that I could not quite read. "She consented to the inspection," he said. "We used your UV light on her Escalade's fuel tank filler. Mr. Hayes, the inside of that tank is glowing like a Christmas tree. Bright green, exactly like you described." She initially denied everything, but when we showed her the UV reaction, she started backtracking. "We are taking her statement now." "So what happens next?" I asked. "We are citing her for misdemeanor theft. She will have a court date." "Given that this is her second theft from you and it appears to be targeted harassment, the prosecutor might be interested in pursuing this more seriously." "Do you want to press charges?" "Absolutely." Officer Martinez walked up to join us. "She is pretty upset. Keeps saying this is all a misunderstanding, that she thought the fuel can on the street was abandoned." "On the street?" I said. "My fuel was in my generator behind a locked gate in my yard." "Yeah, her story is not holding together," Martinez agreed. "She also mentioned something about HOA violations you have had and how you are a problem resident. I think she might have just admitted to a motive." Over the next hour, I gave a complete formal statement. I provided copies of all my photos, screenshots of the GPS tracking, receipts for the fuel and the tracking equipment, and a list of all the HOA violations Brenda had issued me over the years. Martinez seemed particularly interested in that last part. "This establishes a pattern of harassment," he said. "The prosecutor is definitely going to want to see this." By noon, Brenda Patterson had been cited and released. The charges were misdemeanor theft, criminal trespass, and the prosecutor's office would review everything to determine if additional charges were warranted. I was told I would be contacted about a court date. I thought that would be the end of it for the day. I was wrong. At 3 in the afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. "Mr. Hayes, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the Phoenix Police Department, White Collar Crimes Division. I have been reviewing your case, and I would like to ask you some questions about your HOA." "White collar crimes. For stealing 5 gallons of gas. Okay," I said slowly. "What do you need to know? Can you come down to the station? I think this conversation should be in person." An hour later, I was sitting in a conference room at the precinct with Detective Chen, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with short black hair and an intense way of listening. She had a folder in front of her that was much thicker than 5 gallons of stolen fuel should require. "Mr. Hayes, when your case came across my desk, something caught my attention. Brenda Patterson is the president of your HOA, correct? Yes. And she has access to HOA funds, bank accounts, that sort of thing. I assume so. She is the president and the treasurer, has been for 6 years. Detective Chen opened her folder. We have been investigating financial irregularities in several HOAs in the Phoenix metro area. There has been a pattern of missing funds, inflated contractor bills, and presidents who seem to be living above their means. When I saw Miss Patterson's name on this theft report and looked into her background, some red flags came up. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of red flags? She drives a vehicle worth $80,000. She owns a second property in Sedona that was purchased 2 years ago for cash. Her husband is a high school teacher. On paper, their household income should not support that lifestyle. I started looking into Meadowbrook Estates HOA finances this morning, and I am seeing some concerning patterns. Like what? Like contractors being paid premium rates for routine maintenance. Like budget line items that do not match up with actual work performed. Like transfer of funds to accounts that I cannot immediately identify. Mr. Hayes, how much does your HOA collect in dues annually? We have 230 houses. Dues are $400 a month. So that is about $1.1 million a year. And what do you get for that? I thought about it. Landscaping for common areas, pool maintenance, someone to manage the playground and the clubhouse. But honestly, nothing that seems worth $400 a month. The common areas always look kind of shabby. Detective Chen nodded like I had confirmed something she already suspected. Mr. Hayes, I cannot share details of an ongoing investigation, but I want you to know that this fuel theft might have opened up something much bigger. If you notice anything unusual with your HOA, or if Miss Patterson or anyone else contacts you and pressures you to drop the charges, I want you to call me immediately. She handed me her card. I left the police station feeling like I had just stumbled into something way over my head. I came in to report stolen generator fuel and apparently uncovered HOA embezzlement. That evening, my phone started ringing. First, it was Tom Whitmore from down the street, another Meadowbrook resident. Connor, man, I heard Brenda got arrested for stealing your gas. Is that true? She was cited, not arrested. But yeah, it is true. Holy crap. I mean, I always thought she was annoying, but stealing? That is insane. Word spread fast. By nightfall, my neighborhood's Facebook group was exploding with posts. Half the residents were shocked. The other half were saying they had always suspected something was off about Brenda. Several people mentioned that she had been unusually aggressive about HOA violations lately, like she was trying to distract from something. One comment caught my attention. It was from Linda Morrison, an older woman who lived on the next street over. I have been asking for financial records for 2 years. Brenda always has excuses for why she cannot provide them. Every time I bring it up at HOA meetings, she shuts me down and says everything is fine. Maybe now someone will actually look into where our money is going. I screenshot that and sent it to Detective Chen. Friday morning, I woke up to find an official HOA violation notice taped to my front door. I could not believe it. Brenda was seriously doubling down. The notice claimed my generator was an unsightly appliance visible from the street and violated the aesthetic standards of the community. It demanded I remove it within 48 hours or face a $100 per day fine. I took a photo of the notice and called Detective Chen immediately. She is retaliating, I told her. She literally just got cited for stealing from me and now she is threatening me with HOA fines. Keep that notice. Document everything. This is witness intimidation and it is not going to look good for her. I am going to have a conversation with Miss Patterson today about appropriate conduct. An hour later, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Brenda standing on my porch. She looked terrible, like she had not slept. Her hair was not styled, and she was wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt instead of her usual carefully coordinated outfit. I opened the door but left the screen door latched. "What do you want, Brenda?" "Connor, please. Can we talk? I think there has been a huge misunderstanding. The police used a UV light on your fuel tank. It glowed green with my marked fuel. There is no misunderstanding." Her face crumpled. "I made a mistake. I was not thinking clearly. My husband and I are going through financial difficulties, and I saw the fuel can and I just took it without thinking. I was desperate, but we can work this out, right? Neighbors helping neighbors. You do not need to press charges. The fuel was not in a can on the street, Brenda. It was in my generator behind my locked gate. You trespassed and you stole from me, and this is the second time. I will pay you back, whatever you want. Please, Connor, if I get a conviction, I could lose my real estate license. I will lose everything." So she had a real estate license too. I wondered if Detective Chen knew that. "You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from me. Twice. You do not understand the pressure I am under." Her voice was rising now, getting shrill. "Do you know what it takes to run an HOA, to deal with people like you who do not respect the rules? I work tirelessly for this community. By stealing my fuel and trying to fine me for the generator you stole from. That violation notice is legitimate. Your generator is an eyesore. Get off my property, Brenda. Do not come back. Do not contact me. Everything goes through the police and the courts now." I closed the door. Through the wood, I could hear her standing there for a moment, then her footsteps retreating. I immediately called Detective Chen again and told her about the encounter. "She came to your house." Chen sounded angry. "After I specifically told her this morning to have no contact with you." "Okay, that is it. I am escalating this. Do not answer the door if she comes back. Call 911 if she does." The weekend was tense. I kept checking the GPS tracker app even though the marker had not moved from Brenda's property. My neighbors kept texting and calling with questions. The Facebook group had devolved into chaos, with people taking sides. Some were defending Brenda, saying I was blowing things out of proportion over a few gallons of gas. Others were demanding a full audit of HOA finances. Linda Morrison posted a formal request for an emergency HOA meeting to vote on removing Brenda as president. According to the bylaws, 20% of homeowners had to sign a petition for that. She got the signatures in 48 hours. The meeting was scheduled for the following Wednesday at the clubhouse. I had no idea what to expect. Monday morning, Detective Chen called me. "Mr. Hayes, I wanted to give you an update. We have subpoenaed Meadowbrook Estates HOA financial records going back 5 years. We are also executing a search warrant at Miss Patterson's home and her office today. I cannot give you details, but I wanted you to know that your fuel theft report has opened up a significant investigation into embezzlement, into multiple potential charges. That is all I can say right now. But thank you for being thorough with your documentation. The GPS tracking evidence is solid, and it gave us the probable cause we needed to look deeper." I felt surreal. All I wanted was to catch whoever was stealing my generator fuel. Now I was apparently a witness in a major fraud investigation. Tuesday afternoon, the news broke. Channel 12 ran a story about an HOA president in Phoenix being investigated for embezzlement. They did not name Brenda directly, but they named Meadowbrook Estates. My phone exploded with messages from neighbors. Tom Whitmore called me. "Dude, turn on the news. This is insane." I turned on Channel 12 and watched a reporter standing in front of our neighborhood entrance sign. Residents of this quiet Phoenix suburb are reeling after allegations that their HOA president may have embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars over a 5-year period. The investigation began after a seemingly minor theft report led police to examine the HOA's financial records. Police say they have found evidence of fraudulent contractor invoices, unauthorized transfers of HOA funds, and financial irregularities totaling more than $400,000. $400,000. I sat down hard on my couch. That was almost half of what the HOA collected in a single year. If she had been doing this for 5 years, the total amount could be staggering. The reporter continued. Brenda Patterson, the HOA president, has not been formally charged yet, but sources tell us that charges are expected soon. Police say the case broke open after Patterson was caught stealing fuel from a resident's generator using GPS tracking technology and UV reactive dye. They showed a graphic illustrating how GPS tracking in fuel worked. Then they interviewed a legal expert who explained that HOA embezzlement was a growing problem in Arizona and across the country. My phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize with a 602 area code. Mr. Hayes. This is Karen Winters from Channel 12 News. We would love to interview you about the fuel theft that led to this investigation. Would you be willing to speak with us? I need to think about it, I said. Let me talk to the detective handling the case first. I called Detective Chen. She advised me that I was free to speak to the media if I wanted, but I should avoid discussing specific details of the ongoing investigation. Stick to the facts of the fuel theft itself, she said. The GPS tracking, the UV dye, how you caught her, that is all public record now anyway. I agreed to a brief interview. The news crew came to my house that evening. I showed them my generator, explained how I had discovered the theft, and described the GPS tracking system I had used. The reporter was fascinated by the UV dye. So you literally marked your fuel like a bank marks cash for bait money, she asked. Exactly. If someone steals fuel with UV dye in it, the dye is invisible to the eye, but it glows under blacklight. It is basically proof positive that the fuel in their tank came from your container. And that led police to examine the HOA finances. Apparently, once they started looking into Miss Patterson's background, they found red flags that suggested she might be involved in other financial crimes. But you would have to ask the police for details on that. The interview aired on the 10 o'clock news. They edited it down to about 90 seconds, but it was enough. I came across as reasonable and methodical. They showed footage of my generator and a demonstration of how UV dye worked in fuel. Then they cut to Detective Chen giving a brief statement about the investigation. This case demonstrates how important it is for residents to pay attention to their HOA finances and to ask questions when something does not seem right, Chen said. We encourage anyone with information about potential HOA fraud to contact their local police department. Wednesday arrived, and with it came the emergency HOA meeting. The clubhouse was packed. Every seat was filled and people were standing along the walls. I got there early and found a seat near the front. Linda Morrison was setting up a microphone and a laptop connected to a projector. Brenda walked in at exactly 7 o'clock. She looked composed now, back in her armor of expensive athleisure and styled hair. But I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her eyes darted around the room assessing the crowd. Linda called the meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. As you know, we are here tonight to discuss the leadership of our HOA in light of recent events. According to our bylaws, we have received a petition signed by more than 20% of homeowners calling for a vote of no confidence in our current president, Brenda Patterson. Murmuring rippled through the crowd. Brenda stood up. I would like to address everyone before any votes are taken. You will have an opportunity to speak, Linda said. But first, I want to review what we know. She pulled up a slide on the projector. It showed news headlines from the past few days. Our HOA president has been formally cited for theft and criminal trespass. She is under investigation by Phoenix police for potential embezzlement of HOA funds. While she has not been charged with embezzlement yet, the investigation is ongoing. In light of these facts, I believe it is in the best interest of this community to remove her from her position immediately and to appoint an interim president while we sort this out. Brenda's face was red. This is a witch hunt. I have served this community faithfully for 6 years, and one misunderstanding about some fuel has turned into this circus. The embezzlement investigation is completely baseless. The police are going to find that all of our finances are in perfect order. Then you should not mind us hiring an independent auditor to review the books, Linda shot back. Which is exactly what I am proposing we do. But first, we need new leadership, someone who is not under criminal investigation. I have been set up. Brenda's voice was rising. Connor Hayes has had it out for me since the day he moved in. He deliberately planted that fuel with tracking devices to frame me. This whole thing is a setup. I stood up. Brenda, you were caught on GPS tracking data walking from my house to yours with my fuel. Your vehicle's gas tank glowed green under UV light. The police have evidence. This is not a setup. You stole from me, twice. You are a problem resident who refuses to follow HOA rules, she shouted. You fight every single guideline, you do whatever you want, and now you are trying to destroy me because I held you accountable. I follow the rules, I said, keeping my voice level. You have issued me violations for things that are not even in the bylaws. You have harassed me for 3 years. And when that was not enough, you stole from me. Tom Whitmore stood up. Brenda, I have been trying to get financial records for a year. You keep telling me they are not ready yet, or you cannot find them, or I do not have the right to see them. If everything is legitimate, why would not you just provide them? Other people started chiming in. Stories of denied financial records requests, questions about why our dues kept going up while services seemed to decrease, observations about expensive contractors who did not seem to do much work. Brenda was looking around the room wildly. You are all turning on me because of lies and rumors. I will not stand for this. Then sit down, Linda said firmly. We are taking a vote. All in favor of removing Brenda Patterson as HOA president, please raise your hand. The room erupted in a forest of raised hands. I looked around and counted. It was not even close. Maybe 80% of the room had their hands up. All opposed. A handful of hands went up. Maybe 10 people. The motion passes. Brenda, you are removed as president effective immediately. Please surrender all HOA documents, passwords, and financial access within 24 hours, or we will pursue legal action. Brenda stood there for a moment, her face cycling through emotions, shock, rage, and something that might have been fear. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out of the clubhouse. The door slammed behind her. The room was silent for a beat, then everyone started talking at once. Linda banged a gavel, which I had not even known HOAs had, and called for order. All right, everyone. We need to elect an interim president and establish a committee to work with the police investigation and to hire an independent auditor. Let us get organized. The meeting went on for another 2 hours. Tom Whitmore was elected interim president. A financial oversight committee was formed with Linda as the chair. We voted to hire a forensic accountant to audit the books. We also voted to pursue legal action against Brenda for any misappropriated funds once the investigation was complete. I drove home that night feeling exhausted but vindicated. This was not just about my stolen fuel anymore. This was about holding someone accountable for years of abuse of power and potentially massive financial fraud. Thursday morning, I got a call from the Maricopa County Attorney's office. A prosecutor named Michael Bradford wanted to meet with me to discuss the charges against Brenda Patterson. I met him at his office that afternoon. Bradford was a tall man in his 50s with graying hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. He had a file folder in front of him that was even thicker than Detective Chen's had been. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming in. I have been reviewing your case and I wanted to talk to you about what is going to happen next." "Okay. First, the theft and trespass charges. Those are solid. We have GPS evidence, UV dye evidence, and Miss Patterson's own inconsistent statements. She will almost certainly plead guilty to those or be convicted at trial. The question is whether she gets probation or jail time. What do you think will happen?" "That depends partly on the embezzlement investigation. Detective Chen and her team have found evidence that Miss Patterson has been systematically embezzling from Meadowbrook Estates HOA for at least 5 years. We are talking about somewhere between $400,000 and $600,000. I felt like I had been punched. $600,000. That was insane," Bradford continued. "She created fake invoices from legitimate contractors but inflated the amounts. She would pay the contractor the real amount, then pocket the difference. She also created entirely fake vendor companies, paid them with HOA funds, and transferred the money to her own accounts. She has been using the money to fund her lifestyle. The second property in Sedona, the Escalade, expensive vacations, home renovations. It is all there. How did she get away with it for so long? She controlled all the financial information, and she intimidated anyone who asked questions. She also rotated board members frequently, so no one else was in a position long enough to spot the patterns. But we have her now. The forensic accountants have traced the money. We have bank records, invoices, emails, everything. So what happens? We are going to charge her with multiple counts of theft, fraud, and embezzlement. Given the amount of money involved, she is looking at significant prison time if convicted. We are talking years, not months." "Good," Bradford nodded. "I wanted to meet with you because you are going to be a key witness. The theft of your generator fuel is how we got into her financial records. It establishes her character, shows a pattern of stealing, and gives us a timeline. Your GPS evidence and your thoroughness in documenting everything made this case possible." "I just wanted to catch whoever was stealing my gas," I said. "Well, you caught a lot more than that. Are you willing to testify if this goes to trial?" "Absolutely." Over the next few weeks, everything accelerated. Brenda was formally charged with 16 counts of theft, fraud, and embezzlement. The total amount was calculated at $583,000. The HOA filed a civil lawsuit against her to recover the funds. Her real estate license was suspended pending the outcome of the criminal case. The forensic audit of Meadowbrook Estates' finances revealed exactly how she had done it. She had been careful at first, skimming small amounts. But over the years, she had gotten bolder. In the most recent year, she had taken more than $150,000. The legitimate contractors she had worked with were interviewed. Most of them had no idea their invoices were being altered. One landscaping company confirmed they had been paid $30,000 for work that HOA records showed as costing $70,000. Brenda had pocketed the $40,000 difference. My neighborhood was in chaos. The HOA was essentially bankrupt. Our reserve fund had been depleted. We needed to do emergency special assessments just to cover basic maintenance while we fought to recover the stolen money. A lot of neighbors were angry, though fortunately most of that anger was directed at Brenda rather than at me. A few people did blame me for opening this can of worms. One guy, Steve something from the next street over, confronted me at the mailboxes one day. "You know we are all paying extra now because of you, right?" he said. "If you had just let the fuel thing go, we would not be dealing with all this." I stared at him. "You are seriously suggesting I should have let her keep stealing from me so that we would not find out she was stealing from all of us?" "I am just saying, things were fine before you made a big deal out of it." "Things were not fine. We were being robbed. We just did not know it." He walked away muttering, but he was in the minority. Most people were grateful the truth had come out, even if dealing with the fallout was painful. In late September, about 3 months after the initial fuel theft, Brenda's lawyer reached out to the prosecutor about a plea deal. She was willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommendation of a reduced sentence. Bradford called me to discuss it. She is offering to plead guilty and to cooperate in helping us recover as much of the stolen money as possible. In exchange, we would recommend 8 years in prison instead of pushing for the maximum of 15. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think 8 years is fair. She stole more than $500,000. She needs to do real time. And if she cooperates in asset recovery, your HOA might actually get some of the money back. Then I support the plea deal." The plea hearing was scheduled for October 15th. I took the day off work to be there. The courtroom was packed with Meadowbrook residents. Linda Morrison was there, Tom Whitmore, and dozens of others. We all wanted to see Brenda face justice. She walked in wearing a conservative gray suit, her hair pulled back, looking nothing like the imperious HOA president who had ruled our neighborhood for 6 years. She looked small and scared. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Ramirez, reviewed the charges and the plea agreement. Then she asked Brenda directly, "Miss Patterson, you are pleading guilty to 16 counts of theft, fraud, and embezzlement involving more than $500,000. Do you understand the charges against you?" "Yes, Your Honor." Brenda's voice was barely audible. "And you understand that by pleading guilty, you are waiving your right to a trial and accepting responsibility for these crimes?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Before I accept this plea, I want to hear from you. Why did you do this?" Brenda was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice cracked. "At first, I told myself I was just borrowing the money, that I would pay it back. My husband and I were struggling financially, and I had access to the funds, and it seemed like no one would notice. But it became easier and easier. I justified it by telling myself I worked hard for the HOA and I deserved it. But I know that is not true. I stole from my neighbors. I stole from people who trusted me. I have no excuse." Judge Ramirez nodded. "At least you are taking responsibility now. I am going to accept this plea. Sentencing will be in 60 days. Until then, you will remain out on bail, but you are ordered to have no contact with anyone from Meadowbrook Estates HOA, and you are to cooperate fully with asset recovery efforts. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." They led her out. I saw her glance at the gallery full of her former neighbors, but she looked away quickly, shame written all over her face. In the hallway afterward, Linda Morrison came up to me. "Connor, I wanted to thank you. If you had not caught her stealing that fuel, we might never have known about any of this." "I just wanted to stop someone from taking my gas," I said. "Well, you stopped a lot more than that. The next 2 months were a waiting game." Brenda's lawyers were working with the prosecutors to identify and liquidate assets. The Sedona property was sold. Her Escalade was sold. Jewelry, artwork, anything of value was being converted to cash to pay back the HOA. It was not going to be enough to cover everything she stole, but it would help. I focused on getting back to normal life. Work, home, trying to ignore the occasional reporter who still called wanting to do follow-up stories. The news coverage had been extensive. My GPS fuel tracking method had gotten national attention. I had been interviewed by 3 different news outlets, and the story had been picked up by several online media sites with headlines like HOA President Busted by High-Tech Generator Fuel Trap, and Homeowner's Clever GPS Tracking Exposes Massive HOA Fraud. My favorite was from a tech blog that did a deep dive into GPS tracking devices and UV dyes, using my case as an example of creative problem solving. Sentencing day arrived on December 10th. The courtroom was packed again. This time, several residents were planning to give victim impact statements. Linda Morrison had prepared a statement on behalf of the HOA. Tom Whitmore was speaking about the financial impact on the community, and I was speaking about the theft itself and the harassment I had endured. Judge Ramirez called the court to order. We are here for sentencing in the matter of State of Arizona versus Brenda Patterson. Miss Patterson has pleaded guilty to 16 counts involving the theft of more than $583,000 from her HOA, as well as theft and trespass charges related to stealing fuel from a resident. Before I impose sentence, I am going to hear from the victims. Linda Morrison went first. She spoke about the betrayal of trust, about how Brenda had been elected to serve the community but had instead robbed it blind. She talked about the financial hardship the theft had caused, the special assessments that residents now had to pay, the depletion of the reserve fund that was supposed to pay for emergency repairs. Tom Whitmore spoke about the culture of fear and intimidation Brenda had created, how she had silenced anyone who asked questions about finances, how she had used the power of her position to bully people into compliance. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium and looked at Brenda. She was staring at the table in front of her, refusing to make eye contact. Your Honor, my name is Connor Hayes. I am the one Brenda Patterson stole generator fuel from. That theft is what started this investigation. But the fuel itself is not really what this is about. It is about a pattern of behavior. For 3 years, Brenda Patterson harassed me with frivolous HOA violations. She targeted me because I asked questions and because I did not just go along with whatever she wanted. When I caught her stealing from me using GPS tracking and UV dye, I thought it was just about the fuel. I did not know we would discover she had been stealing from all of us for years. But looking back, it makes sense. Someone who would abuse their power the way she did, someone who would steal fuel from a neighbor's generator in the middle of the night, is exactly the kind of person who would embezzle hundreds of thousands of dollars. I am glad she got caught. I am glad she is being held accountable. And I hope this sends a message to other HOA board members who might be tempted to abuse their positions. Thank you. I sat down. Judge Ramirez nodded and made some notes. Then she addressed Brenda directly. Miss Patterson, please stand. Brenda stood, her lawyer beside her. I have reviewed the presentence report, the victim impact statements, and the plea agreement. I have considered your cooperation with asset recovery efforts and your acceptance of responsibility. However, I have also considered the severity of your crimes. You were elected to a position of trust, and you violated that trust in the worst possible way. You stole more than $500,000 from your neighbors over a period of 5 years. You created a culture of fear and intimidation to cover your crimes. And when you were finally caught, it was because you were stealing generator fuel from a resident who had the foresight to track his property. She paused, looking at Brenda with an expression that was hard to read. The plea agreement calls for an 8-year sentence. I am going to accept that recommendation, But I want to be clear. If you had not cooperated with asset recovery, I would have given you the maximum 15 years. You are sentenced to 8 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections on the embezzlement and fraud charges, to be served concurrently. On the theft and trespass charges related to the generator fuel, you are sentenced to 1 year in county jail, also to be served concurrently. You will be given credit for time served. You are also ordered to pay full restitution of $583,000 to Meadowbrook Estates, HOA, and you are prohibited from serving in any HOA leadership position for the rest of your life. The gavel came down. Brenda's shoulders shook and I realized she was crying. The bailiff stepped forward to take her into custody. Her lawyer put a hand on her shoulder, speaking quietly to her. Then they led her away in the hallway. Several neighbors came up to shake my hand or thank me. Linda Morrison gave me a hug. "Justice," she said simply. Tom Whitmore clapped me on the shoulder. "Drinks are on me tonight, man. You earned it." I went home that afternoon feeling like a weight had been lifted. It was over. Brenda Patterson was going to prison. The HOA finances were being sorted out. My life could go back to normal. That evening, I got an email from Detective Chen. "Mr. Hayes, I wanted to thank you for your cooperation throughout this investigation. Your thorough documentation and creative problem-solving made this case possible. Because of your efforts, a significant fraud was stopped and a criminal was brought to justice. The Phoenix Police Department appreciates your citizenship." I replied with a simple thank you, then poured myself a bourbon and sat on my back patio, looking out at the desert landscape I had fought to preserve despite Brenda's complaints. My generator sat in the side yard, fueled and ready for the next power outage. I had removed the GPS tracker and stopped using the UV dye. I did not need them anymore. The next HOA board meeting was in January. Tom Whitmore had been officially elected president. Linda Morrison was treasurer. They had established new financial controls, including quarterly audits, and required approval from multiple board members for any expenditure over $500. The forensic accountant had been hired on a retainer basis to review the books regularly. At the meeting, Tom stood up to give a report on the asset recovery efforts. "Thanks to the seizure and sale of Brenda Patterson's assets, we have recovered approximately $240,000 so far. It is not everything, but it is something. We are also pursuing insurance claims that may cover some of the losses, and we have filed a civil judgment against her for the remaining balance, which means if she ever comes into money in the future, we can claim it." Linda added, "We have also conducted a full review of our bylaws and our financial procedures. We are implementing new transparency measures, including posting all financial statements online, where every homeowner can review them. We are also limiting the term for president to 2 consecutive years, so no one person can consolidate power the way Brenda did." It was exactly what the neighborhood needed. A fresh start with accountability. Over the following months, life in Meadowbrook Estates slowly returned to normal. The special assessments were painful, but people understood why they were necessary. Property values actually went up a bit once the fraud case made headlines, with real estate agents marketing the neighborhood as a community that had cleaned up corruption and established strong financial controls. I got a new neighbor in March when the house next to mine sold. A young couple with a baby moved in. They introduced themselves as Mark and Jennifer Cruz, and they told me they had specifically chosen Meadowbrook because they had read about the HOA reforms and were impressed by the transparency measures. "We looked at a lot of neighborhoods," Mark said. "But everywhere else, the HOA finances were this black box. Here, everything is posted online. We can see exactly where our money is going. After what you guys went through, you have the most accountable HOA in Phoenix." I had never thought about it that way, but he was right. The theft and the investigation had actually made our neighborhood stronger. In April, I got a letter from the Arizona Department of Corrections. It was from Brenda Patterson. My first instinct was to throw it away without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Connor, I know I have no right to contact you, and if you want to throw this letter away, I understand. But I wanted to say that I am sorry. I am sorry for stealing from you, for harassing you, for abusing my position and betraying the trust of everyone in our community. I do not expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I take full responsibility for what I did. You were right to catch me, and I am facing the consequences of my actions. What I did was wrong, and I knew it was wrong even while I was doing it. I hope you and the rest of Meadowbrook can move forward without the burden of what I did weighing you down. Sincerely, Brenda Patterson." I read it twice, then folded it back into the envelope and put it in a drawer. I did not know if the apology was genuine or if it was just her trying to make herself feel better. But either way, it did not change anything. She had stolen, she had been caught, and she was paying the price. In May, my generator actually got a real workout when a massive storm knocked out power for 2 days. This time, my fuel stayed exactly where it was supposed to be. My neighbors came over to charge their phones and to store some perishable food in my fridge since I was the only one with power. It felt good to be able to help. Tom Whitmore stopped by on the second day of the outage. "Man, you are the most popular house on the street right now." "It is just a generator," I said. "Yeah, but that generator is the reason we do not have an embezzler running our HOA anymore. Every time I see that thing, I am reminded that one person paying attention and refusing to let something slide can make a real difference." He was right, in a way. If I had just shrugged off the first fuel theft, or if I had not bothered to set up the GPS tracking and the UV dye, Brenda would still be stealing from all of us. She would have continued until the HOA was completely bankrupt or until she got too greedy and made a mistake that was even more obvious. Instead, 5 gallons of generator fuel with a GPS tracker and some UV dye had brought down a massive fraud scheme and sent an HOA tyrant to prison for 8 years. By summer, the neighborhood had fully moved on. We had 4th of July block party that was better attended than any HOA event in years. People were actually engaged with the community now, showing up to meetings, volunteering for committees, and paying attention to the finances. The culture had completely changed. I was grilling burgers at the block party when a reporter from a local podcast called Arizona True Crime approached me. She wanted to do a full episode about the case. I agreed, figuring it might help other people recognize the warning signs of HOA fraud. The episode aired in August. It was titled "The Generator Fuel Heist That Exposed a $500,000 HOA Scam." They interviewed me, Detective Chen, Prosecutor Bradford, Linda Morrison, and even played some of Brenda's sentencing hearing audio. The episode got a lot of downloads and sparked conversations online about HOA accountability. I got messages from people across the country telling me their own HOA horror stories, asking for advice on how to investigate potential fraud. I always gave the same answer. Document everything, ask for financial records, and if something does not seem right, trust your instincts and talk to the police. Some people called me paranoid for putting GPS trackers in my generator fuel. But those people were not the ones who had caught a thief and exposed a massive fraud scheme. Sometimes paranoia pays off. By the end of the year, Meadowbrook Estates had recovered a total of $320,000 through asset seizure and insurance claims. It was not the full amount Brenda had stolen, but combined with the improved financial management under the new board, the HOA was stable again. We had even started rebuilding the reserve fund. I still live in Meadowbrook Estates. I still have my generator, though it no longer has GPS tracking devices or UV dye in the fuel. I do not need them anymore. The new HOA board is honest and transparent. Linda Morrison sends out monthly financial reports that anyone can review. Tom Whitmore responds to emails within 24 hours and has never once threatened me with a violation notice. My desert landscaping is still there, exactly as I designed it, with native plants that do not need much water. My solar panels are still on my roof, generating clean energy. My front door is still painted the shade of red that Brenda claimed violated the bylaws, but that actually was perfectly within the approved color palette, as I proved by showing her the documentation. I am just living my life, working from home, enjoying the Arizona sunshine, and occasionally telling the story of how 5 gallons of stolen generator fuel brought down an HOA tyrant and exposed a $500,000 embezzlement scheme. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad about what happened to Brenda, if I think 8 years in prison is too harsh for white-collar crime. My answer is always the same. She made her choices. She chose to abuse her power. She chose to steal from her neighbors year after year. She chose to harass and intimidate anyone who asked questions. And when she got caught, she chose to try to intimidate me into dropping the charges. Every choice she made was the wrong one, and every choice had consequences. I did not send her to prison. Her own actions did that. I just refused to be a victim and decided to fight back with technology, documentation, and determination. The GPS tracker cost me $60. The UV dye cost $40. The UV flashlight cost $20. $120 of security equipment caught a thief and exposed a $583,000 fraud. That might be the best return on investment I have ever gotten. These days, when I fire up my generator during a storm, I think about that night when I discovered the fuel had been stolen. I think about the decision I made to fight back instead of just refilling the tank and moving on. I think about how one small act of refusing to accept being victimized led to justice for an entire community. And I think about all the other HOA board members out there who might be abusing their power, stealing from their neighbors, and counting on people being too busy or too intimidated to fight back. I hope my story reaches some of those potential victims and gives them the courage to ask questions, to demand accountability, and to use whatever tools they have available to protect themselves and their communities. Because in the end, that is what this story is really about. It is not about generator fuel or GPS trackers or UV dye. It is about standing up to bullies and refusing to let people in positions of power abuse that power without consequences. It is about one person deciding that enough is enough and being willing to do the work to prove their case. Brenda Patterson is sitting in an Arizona prison right now, serving year 2 of an 8-year sentence. She has lost her freedom, her reputation, her real estate license, and any chance of ever being trusted with power again. All because she could not resist the temptation to steal 5 gallons of fuel from her neighbor's generator. Meanwhile, I am sitting on my patio, looking at the desert sunset, with a cold beer in my hand and the quiet satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing. My generator is ready if I need it. My neighborhood is run by honest people. And my property is exactly the way I want it, without HOA tyrants threatening me with violation notices for made-up infractions. Life is good. justice was served. And somewhere out there, maybe another homeowner is reading this story and deciding to put a GPS tracker in their own fuel supply, or to ask their HOA board for financial records, or to refuse to be intimidated by petty tyrants with a little bit of power. If this story helps even one person stand up for themselves and catch one more corrupt HOA board member, then everything I went through was worth it. The hassle, the stress, the confrontations, the court appearances, all of it. Because communities deserve honest leadership. Homeowners deserve to know their dues are being spent appropriately. And thieves deserve to face consequences, whether they are stealing 5 gallons of fuel or $500,000. That is the lesson of the generator fuel heist, as the local podcast called it. Small acts of crime often reveal bigger patterns of corruption. And one person with a GPS tracker, some UV dye, and the determination to see justice done can change everything. So here is to technology, to persistence, and to the sweet satisfaction of watching a bully get exactly what they deserve. Brenda Patterson stole my generator fuel and thought she would get away with it. She did not know the fuel was marked and tracked. She did not know her theft would expose years of embezzlement. She did not know that her reign of HOA terror was about to come crashing down, but she knows now. And so does every other HOA board member in Arizona who might be tempted to abuse their position. We are watching. We are documenting. And if you steal from us, we will catch you. The GPS dye led police straight to her tank, just like it was supposed to. Justice followed close behind.